Thank you all for joining today. My name is Vance Lewis. I am now an associate partner at Promise Venture Studio. Thank you. Started my career as a upper elementary, middle school special education teacher. Realized that we just needed to put a lot more resources and attention into early childhood to address some of the inequities that I saw in the classroom. Today is going to be a kind of in-person example of our Show and Tell series and one of our Show and Tell events. But before I get into that, just a little bit background on Promise. There's 4 of us in the room here, so Promise folks, you can raise your hands. Woo! So we are a nonprofit venture studio that attracts, supports, and connects people and capital in early childhood to catalyze innovation and impact, really for families that we define as facing the greatest adversity, which is those facing structural racism and other systemic inequities. And today's Show and Tell is a part of our Show and Tell series on equity and justice in early childhood development. So we had a couple of different Show and Tells. We had one on birth equity and justice on July 13th, and then we had one on early care and education, equity and justice in early care and education on July 27th. This is going to be mostly ventures from early care and education, but if time allows, we'll do one from birth equity and justice as well. And then you can see up there we have some events coming up in August. If you are interested in those, please let me or anybody else in the room from the Promise team know about that. Okay, so to keep you oriented, we had about 14 to 15 presenters for this, but we're going to condense that since we only have 40 minutes today. So we'll do about 6. The first few will be a focus on racial equity. Then we'll do one on cultural and linguistic equity. We'll do one that's focused on compensation for the ECE workforce, which we know is primarily women of color. And then we'll do one at the end, if time allows, on birth equity and justice. Obviously, thanks to our supporters, AmFam Institute. I'm not sure if anybody here is with them, but I know they're here this week, so thank you. Big shout out to them. And then here's why we do Show and Tell. Really, we're trying to bring together a national community of funders, investors, social entrepreneurs, present diverse perspectives on key topics in the field. And then really, it's a platform for connection, support, and ongoing collaboration. So hopefully, you all have gotten one of the forms from my colleague Grant in the back. If you have not, you can raise your hand and Grant will give you one. But that is what we're going to use today. If you would like to connect with any of the speakers that you will see throughout the Show and Tell. And before we start, let me just get a sense of who's in the room. So if you could raise your hand if you consider yourself a early childhood professional. Awesome. Raise your hand if you are an entrepreneur. Awesome. Raise your hand if you're a part of a funding organization. Raise your hand if you're here because you're like, I want to see some really interesting social entrepreneurs presenting on equity and justice in early childhood. All right, perfect. That's what we're going to do. Okay, so this is our follow-along site. If you want to jot this down anywhere, if you need to leave early, or if you want to check out the rest of the Show and Tell presentations that we do not cover today, this will have all of those. So I'll give people time to write that down. Oh, it's also on the sheet, Grant? Perfect. So it's also on your sheet. And then we'll start off with our first presenter touching on the topic of racial equity. So first up, we'll have Dr. Stephanie Currington. She is from BU's SEED, and she has developed a classroom observation measure that's targeted for racially minoritized learners and really elevates and centers their experience in early childhood classrooms. Just to be clear, the way this is going to work is we'll see kind of short presentations that were actually in our Show and Tell event. And if you have any questions or you want to provide any comments on the presentation, please feel free to just stop me. It's a small group, so you can raise your hand and we can do it that way. So with that, I will play Stephanie.
Early learning is built upon relationships. We use measures to train teachers, assess classrooms, and even compensate programs based on the quality of these relationships. But what happens when those relationships are racially biased? Research shows white teachers report not being as emotionally connected to their Black or Latinx students, and that they have lower academic expectations for them. Other studies also show white teachers talk less to children of color, and that they are overly suspicious of Black children's behavior and dole out harsher punishments to children of color. These biased relationships result in children of color experiencing classroom interactions like this.
Stop!
I do nothing.
I'm not doing anything. And yes, you were. Get to the timeout chair. Now, please.
Our traditional classroom quality measures would rate the teacher as handling the situation appropriately. She didn't yell. She used polite language. She had a clearly defined consequence for misbehavior, the timeout chair. But traditional measures would fail to acknowledge how the teacher denigrated the Black boy's home language or how the white boy was the aggressor, yet he faced no consequences. Did you see the heartbreak on the Black boy's face? The teacher had already marked him, labeled him, profiled him. This happens every day in every classroom to every child of color. And that's why I developed Access, the first measure of racial equity in preschool classrooms. Access, aligned with professional development and coaching, can detect microaggressions and microassaults perpetrated by teachers or peers, power structures in the classroom related to race and ethnicity, and how children feel in the classroom and their opportunities to learn. I've launched a growing community of practice with colleagues from Oregon, California, and Delaware to design the technical assistance network, including PD, coaching, and assessment, to embed this measure of racial equity into Head Start, state, and local early childhood programs. Investments in Access can help early childhood leaders improve teachers' relationships with children of color, ensure disciplinary practices are fair and proactive, and teach children to be upstanders for social justice. I am grateful to the funders who have already invested in Access and in our community of practice. But to implement Access throughout state and local early childhood programs, I am seeking additional partners to join our growing community of practice and $1 million to build the core technical assistance team to embed Access into quality improvement systems. Please join our movement of leaders who refuse to wait any longer for a racially equitable early childhood system in which all children can thrive.
Awesome. Yeah, so what I love so much about Dr. Currington's measure is that it is supposed to be supplementing what is going on currently in early childhood classrooms. So a lot of people use class as a classroom quality measure. Access can supplement class, and in some cases actually being used instead of class. So really some excellent work done by Stephanie Currington and her team at BU. And if you want to, again, just another call out here. If you want to connect with them, you can put a little check mark here, or if you want to make an introduction for them, you can also signify that on this sheet. But let's keep moving, and we'll next hear from Embracing Equity's founder, Daisy Hahn, and they are really doing excellent work cultivating mindsets, practices, and helping educators get the tools and mindsets to really be anti-racist inside and outside the classroom.
Hi, I'm Daisy Hahn, founder of Embracing Equity. And on what should have been an exciting first day of school, I remember my teacher pulling her eyes into slants, making goofy faces in a genuine attempt to comfort and humor me. We know that's not culturally competent, She didn't mean it, but it still hurt. And like so many teachers, she enacted harm even with the best of intentions. Fast forward to my first day as a Montessori teacher, and I found myself in a similar position, well-intentioned but ill-equipped. How could I provide something different without having experienced it myself? After 10 years of teaching, I went to graduate school to research and reflect. And there I learned that students of color in anti-racist learning environments have higher levels of success in school and beyond. They understand that the inequity they face is not caused by personal shortcomings, but rather is a systemic failure. And that failure happens nationally. Only 2 states require cultural competency training as part of teacher certification, and I was determined to disrupt this inequity. And so in 2017, I founded Embracing Equity to connect the inner change to the outer change for collective change. That's represented in individual learning, interpersonal actions, and institutional transformation. We focus on developing anti-racist mindsets and practices. Rather than teaching a toolkit, we say the tools are in you. We harness immersive virtual learning that moves anti-racism values into daily practice. And our programs are built from the ground up to be virtual, which allows us to be more scalable and more equitable. It's easier to access without travel or childcare. It's cheaper, and surprisingly, it's more effective. Our participants tell us that they find it easier to be more vulnerable online with us than in comparable in-person trainings. Our programs are delivered to teachers, school leaders, and educational organizations. We have virtual cohorts, 10 hours of synchronous facilitated anti-racism training. The Teaching for Equity microcredential is a self-paced course on actionable high-leverage practices. And the Leadership Residency is a year-long program that starts with an equity audit, sets organizational goals, and facilitates their implementation side by side with leaders. We've engaged over 2,000 participants, impacting over 200,000 children nationally. And it's working. Our graduates tell us that embracing equity was an inflection point in their lives. They're able to recognize racism when they encounter it and feel better equipped to do something about it. When people experience our program, they want more. We've grown from 260 participants a year to 910 driven by word of mouth, and we have a huge wait list. Embracing Equity is recognized as a leading anti-racism organization. We can serve the same or more participants we serve in a year through a single institutional partnership. Multiply that by the districts in the country, and our growth potential is off the charts. We can serve 1 million children over the next decade. And to get there, we need 2 things. 1, help us secure institutional partners. And 2, we need growth capital for partnership development and to train more trainers to grow our capacity. Will you join us in the movement to embrace equity? Let's get to work.
So again, I think one of the things I love so much about Daisy and Embracing Equity is a couple things. First, they're virtual, which allows them to kind of expand their reach across the entire country, and especially important, obviously, now during COVID. But also, they're so effective that some of the partners that they have hired them and funded them are actually using their training as well to help them become better advocates and practitioners of anti-racism. So really some impressive stuff from the team at Embracing Equity. Next up, we'll have Zeno, and so they are sparking joy and learning through math, but they've explicitly embedded racial equity into math, and in their words, as you'll see, math is racial equity. So it's been around since the beginning of time, and if you're not thinking about embedding racial equity into math, then you're really missing out on math holistically. So let's hear from Miley Hadley from Zeno now.
Math is in every culture throughout history. Math is a life skill. Math is opportunity and an ancestral right. Hi, I'm Miley Hadley, Executive Director of Zeno, where we spark joy and inspire a love of math. Why, you ask? Because there's no such thing as a life lived without math. From environmental stewardship to software engineering, the economy of the future will continue to rely heavily on math skills, yet many adults hold shame and fear around math that close the door of opportunity, because math-phobic adults create math-phobic children. Math is opportunity, an opportunity that systemic racism combined with math phobia has stolen from many kids, more specifically kids of color. Fortunately, this is a problem we can solve. Zeno works at the intersection of race, place, language, and culture. This foundation opens doors to a variety of communities, from indigenous peoples who've lived on this land since time immemorial to recent refugees and everyone in between. We reach thousands of families annually by partnering with any organization that provides services to families with children ages 3 to 5. We start early because children who start strong in math stay strong in math. Our family engagement model includes Zeno game kits that are aligned to early math learning trajectories. Our games are published in 10 different languages and represent the races, ethnicities, and cultures of the families we reach. Beyond games, we engage parenting adults in their child's learning through family math events, coach educators on integrating math practices into existing services, and offer professional development sessions that connect math to literature, racial equity, social emotional learning, and more. We know one's belief about themselves and their abilities might be the greatest protection against the harms of systemic racism. This was my personal experience. I'm a math person. I loved math from a young age, and when I was being discouraged from math classes and STEM careers, I never stopped loving math or believing in my abilities. I became an engineer. Math is identity. Zeno creates conditions for positive math moments between and among educators, children, and parenting adults. Our impact is clear. Beyond grades and test scores, Zeno changes hearts and minds. Our surveys show twice as many families and partners strongly agree that they identify as a math person as a result of their work with Zeno. We know we have something special and we want to share it. Increasing our budget to $5 million will allow Zeno to deepen our work in Washington State and scale our programs and services to new collaborators nationwide. Please consider making a financial gift to support our expansion. In addition to financial gifts, we welcome introductions to key leaders in your community who want to join our math movement. Together, we can produce a more equitable and just world where every child and family is a doer and lover of math. Thank you.
Obviously, they have an incredible presentation. So those images and the cartoons were just incredible. But also, one thing that is not shared about them is that they talked a little bit about their family math events, but what they don't talk about in this, due to a little bit of timing constraints, is how deeply they embed themselves in community through the family math events, through the sessions with educators, and really leveraging community partners and those institutions that already have built up trust in the communities that they're going into to really make sure that they use them to spread the love and joy of math, which really is, I think, quite an exceptional approach that they use. Next, we'll hear from the American Indian College Fund. So they're advancing equity and justice for indigenous communities primarily through partnerships with tribal colleges and universities. And what they're doing is trying to make sure that the early educators in their community are trained by tribal colleges and universities to incorporate their worldview and their culture. So let's hear from Aaron Griffin, who's the program leader for that project now.
Hamitakiapi, Aaron Griffin Amakiapi. I'm Aaron Griffin, and I'm the Program Officer for Indigenous Education at the American Indian College Fund. We've been helping Native students access tribal college education since 1989. In 2011, we realized we could not achieve our mission of transforming Indigenous communities without investing in early childhood education. Quality early childhood education is key to lifelong success, including college completion. In Native communities, quality means culturally competent Native educators engaging children and families in ways that incorporate our Indigenous worldview and understandings. But our communities lack pathways to early education careers. Without many more Native educators trained in Indigenous early education, we cannot deliver quality early childhood education to all Native children. We are partnering with tribal colleges and universities to build those pathways. The College Fund's Indigenous early childhood education programs provide resources, technical assistance, and professional development for Native communities to grow their own early childhood educators and programs of study. The centerpiece of our place-based programming approach involves the intergenerational transfer of knowledge through the integration of Native language and culture. From there, each tribal college starts from the entry point that best fits their community. These include our Indigenous early childhood education domains of teacher quality and instruction, family and community engagement, child developmental skills, and transitions from pre-K through elementary school. Through the support of the College Fund, our tribal college partners choose one of these entry points and are then able to develop Indigenous approaches and models that build and strengthen early childhood education programming. This support is creating transformative change in supporting language revitalization. Take Salish Kootenai College, a tribal college in Montana. The integration of culture and language into the content of STEM courses in their early childhood education programs was facilitated through community and family engagement and early learning partnerships. SKC has since used this model to integrate language and culture into all of their teacher education program STEM courses. The College Fund has awarded $6.3 million across 10 tribal colleges in 9 states to support these initiatives. Our funding is uniquely flexible. It allows our tribal college partners to re-envision early childhood systems and prioritize Indigenous values and knowledge. Over time, we aim to increase the number of Native students entering and graduating from Indigenous early childhood education programs, each of whom has the potential to impact thousands of young children and their families. Our strategic plan lays out a goal to reach 25 tribal colleges and an additional 10,000 children in the next 5 years. We seek $11 million to help us launch this plan. Join us in creating systems where all Indigenous children, educators, and communities can thrive. Wopida tanka e chichiapi, owasina na pe chiusapi, henana pekte.
So obviously very powerful what the American Indian College Fund is doing through preservation of Indigenous culture and language. I'm sure this probably preaching to the choir, but we know how much that the history of America is just rife with violence and trying to stamp out Indigenous communities and cultures in so many different ways and preaching assimilation to a degree. And so I really admire and hope to see them succeed at preserving their culture, making sure their language and traditions stay within their communities, and make sure that their early childhood development and education that they are doing and practicing in their communities is how they want it to be. Let me pause there and see if there's any questions or comments, or please. Correct. Mm-hmm. Right. Yep. Yep. I would agree there, and I think one of the tensions that I think we face in this work and just general through our work at Promise is the tension between speed and actual equity and actual justice. And to your point, not sure your name, Danny, you really can only move at the speed of trust. If you don't move at that speed, then it's generally not going to stick. And so I think the takeaway there is like, how do you make sure we build in adequate time in the schedule to move at the speed of trust and know that if we plan for 1 month, we need this to roll out at the beginning of the school year. Sometimes it may not be completely ready for that, but that's okay because we're moving at the speed of trust and trying to get people ready to embed some of these programs or initiatives. Stefan.
When assessing a program, what are some main criteria that you use given that there's such a spectrum of things?
Awesome. Yeah, good question. So depending on the topic, we'll generally have some things that we're looking for, but what we try and do is we know that we are not always experts at everything, and most times we're not the expert. So what we'll do is we'll go talk to experts. So we'll go talk to different organizations, some of our partners, and say, hey, if we're trying to cover a topic on equity and justice in early childhood, what do we need to make sure that we're hitting? Right? Here's what we think we should be talking about, but is there stuff that we're missing? And so we'll do that, and then we'll reach out to our network. We have over 300 entrepreneurs in our Promise Venture network, and get some new applications as well. And then we'll kind of assess them on a number of different things, but mostly we're looking for that kind of topic level fit, and then hoping that they have something that they are in a position to get an ask met that's going to kind of launch their trajectory to scale and impact. Awesome. Keep the questions coming. Our next one is Luna. So they are leveraging technology to support a very under-supported group, which would be Latina early childhood educators with a focus on home-based child providers. So likely folks in this room know how big of a population is and how much they've really been underserved. So let's hear from Pilar from Luna about what they're doing.
We're facing a national childcare supply crisis that impacts some communities more than others. Even before the pandemic, 57% of Latino families lived in childcare deserts. Without licensed childcare, working families cannot benefit from childcare subsidies, and childcare providers are not eligible for many crucial supports. Nationally, Latinas represent 25% of the home-based workforce, and in some states much more. This does not account for the hundreds of thousands of informal providers that are an essential source of childcare in underserved communities. Yet many early childhood systems don't know how to effectively serve Latina caregivers or reach the children they serve. Licensing is a complicated process with many, many hurdles, especially for English learners. I am Pilar Torres, president of Luna Latinas Unidas. Luna leverages 20 years of experience to reach and support the unique licensing and professional development needs of Latina home-based educators and to build childcare supply in underserved communities. Escaleras, Luna's flagship program, is an off-the-shelf, state-approved package of e-learning modules and coaching that accelerates native Spanish speakers through licensing, allowing them to quickly open childcare slots in their communities. Our suite of services offers a clear pathway to licensing and ongoing support to help childcare providers succeed as educators and entrepreneurs. Our material is culturally relevant, delivered in native Spanish, and intentionally increases digital literacy levels. Escaleras is implemented in partnership with state and local professional development organizations, including CCR&Rs, community development hubs, and more. We work with these partners to recruit and train 3 cohorts of 30 providers per year for 3 years. For 2021-2022, our goal is to launch 3 Escalera pilots in 3 states, creating more than 1,300 new childcare slots. Escalera successfully implemented a proof of concept in Philadelphia with a cohort of 12 providers who previously had no path to licensure. Escaleras also won first prize of the pilot track of the Harvard Science Innovation Challenge. Beyond licensing, Luna curates a virtual community of practice that offers resources and support to build quality and sustainability. With Luna's scalable platform over time, we have the potential to reach hundreds of thousands of Latina providers, strengthening profitable microenterprises for immigrant women while increasing access to quality care in underserved communities. Luna community members will close equity gaps faced by millions of young dual language learners, the fastest growing population in our nation. We're seeking community partners who want to address equity among Latino children and providers in their community. We're also asking for $200,000 in startup capital to build our strategies for growth. Please connect with Luna and join us in building a more just early care and education system for all children and providers.
I mean, Luna's fantastic. Hits a lot of things, right? So the more that they can help people get their licensure and operate their home-based childcare businesses more effectively, the more increased compensation will happen for them for Latina home-based childcare providers. They're helping with access by solving some childcare deserts issues. They're helping with quality. They're helping with digital literacy. So they're hitting a lot of really important things there at Luna. And so if you want to connect with them, please just note that on the sheet. They'd love your support. So the next one is actually going to be one of our ones from our birth equity and justice. I know that ASU+GSV is pretty focused on the ed tech, but at Promise, we understand that you really can't focus on early childhood development or early childhood education without ensuring that the entirety of the continuum of early childhood development is really being supported and is really being advanced in an equitable and just way. And so we found it really necessary to do a whole show and tell, kind of like what you've seen today, on birth equity and justice. So we're going to show one of those now. The org that we'll see is Earth, and what they are is they're a Yelp-like platform that allows Black and brown women and birthing people to rate their medical providers and other birth professionals, so giving some of the power back to them in a system that has really devalued them and really underserved them as well. So let's hear from Kimberly about Earth.
Amber Rose Isaacs, Shalon Irving, Sha'asia Washington, Sabrina De La Rosa, Tatia French, Yolanda Kadima, Dr. Shanice Wallace, Kira Johnson. These are just a few of the Black mothers who have died during or after childbirth in recent years. In fact, Black women are 243% more likely to die during this time, and racism and bias in care is a root cause of this inequity. Current solutions such as anti-bias trainings just aren't working. There's no accountability. And instead of transparency, what we have is just tick the anti-bias training box. But imagine a world where bias-free care was a human right, where Black mothers were allowed to live out their lives, and all of these mothers were still here with us and with their babies. My name is Kimberly Sales-Allers, and I'm the founder of Earth, as in the word birth, but we dropped the B for bias. Earth is a one-of-a-kind digital platform on a mission to eliminate racism and bias in maternal and infant care. Earth has a dual market role, serving both consumers and hospital systems. First, our Yelp-like review and rating app allows Black and brown birthing people to find and leave reviews of prenatal, birthing, and pediatric experiences of care at doctors and hospitals. This is critical because 21% of people of color have avoided seeking health care due to fears about racial discrimination. With Earth, people of color have a digital platform where they can learn from and lean into their community as a trusted resource. Quite simply, we help hospitals learn from the living. By detecting early signs of bias to prevent adverse events, Earth creates community-driven feedback loops that lead to more respectful and equitable maternal and infant care. Our users are elated. Our app had over 3,000 downloads in the first week, with reviews from 48 states plus Hawaii. And hospitals are listening. We recently launched our first hospital pilot in Detroit, with others in the works in LA, New York, and Philadelphia, demonstrating the power of Earth's data in bringing equity to quality improvement and patient safety. Now we're ready to grow with your help. Earth has raised over $600,000 in grants, but we are coming to the end of this funding cycle. We're looking for grant funding to build the next iteration of Earth, increase the analytic capabilities, and expand marketing and engineering. We also need advisors and business partners to support our successful transition to a for-profit social enterprise. Our goal is to become the good housekeeping seal of approval for Black and brown birthing people, such that every hospital serving our communities wants to earn IRF approval. Join us. Together, we can make birth without bias a reality for all.
Thank you. So I love the Earth stamp of approval concept and idea, and would love to see a world where, you see so many buildings want to get that seed stamp of approval. I'm seed gold, I'm seed platinum, I'm seed silver, or whatever. I just would love to see if we could have our hospitals and a lot of other institutions of westernized medicine really trying to get this Earth stamp of approval to show that they're safe, and other Black and brown women and birthing people have validated for them that they are safe and were treated well in that setting. Okay, so we have like 3 minutes and 15, 14, 13 seconds left. If you want to see more innovations advancing equity and justice in early childhood, we have a whole bunch of them in this innovation glossary, and we are fortunate to have one of the entrepreneurs on this screen here with us right now, Dr. Showcat Hamilton, of the Rise Child Development Center. They're founded on anti-racist principles, a lot of stuff we were talking about, increased pay for early childhood educators. Showcat, I'm sure you could tell me a whole bunch of other ones, piloting an anti-racist curriculum they're doing. So please, she would love to chat with you, I think. So please chat with her. And then, let me see if that's, take that down as well to see some of the other innovations. But then we have more for birth equity and justice. And now I have 2 minutes and 15 seconds for folks if there's any more questions or comments. If not, we can play another one. All right, let's do that. Okay, cool. Oh wait, was there? Okay, cool. All right, so next one, as we're on the way out, ESEPs. They're doing professional development, economic well-being for the ECE workforce, primarily through apprenticeships. They're based in California, but trying to expand. So I will just play that, and I know I'm gonna get kicked off in 1 minute and 37 seconds.
I'm Randy Wolf, Executive Director of ESEPS, Early Care and Education Pathways to Success. We're known for our trailblazing work with apprenticeships in California. Nationally, the ECE workforce is comprised of over 1 million workers. They are almost entirely female and largely women of color, immigrants, and working mothers. Despite the long-term impact of early education, poor wages and low-paid career pathways have held back the industry for decades. In 2019, ECE workers nationally earned an average hourly wage of $13.43, and early educators in California faced a poverty rate of 17%. ESEPS approaches these inequities through the lens of workforce development, promoting the apprenticeship model because of its proven record of success in other fields. Apprenticeship is particularly well suited to the field of ECE because teacher quality is the essential component to successful early education, and developing workers' skills, knowledge, and competencies is the essential focus of apprenticeship. So high-quality apprenticeships lead to high-quality teachers. Through our programs, apprentices complete 2,000 hours of paid on-the-job training, earn no-cost college degrees and teaching permits, receive steadily increasing wages, and are assured of a job upon graduation. But we understand that apprenticeships alone cannot solve the economic conundrums facing the industry. So our work falls into 3 buckets: creating and expanding apprenticeships for the ECE workforce, field building to elevate the ECE industry as a workforce development priority, and advocacy to promote family-sustaining wages and well-paid ECE career pathways. Over the past 5 years, we've proven the viability and potential of ECE apprenticeships. We've engaged more than 400 participants. We partner with 15 community colleges and sponsor 18 apprenticeship partnerships across 9 counties, including 3 locations in Los Angeles County. So what's next? It's time for ESEPs to go national. Why? Because the impact of the pandemic, the current political landscape, and the expansion of universal preschool have created a rare opportunity to make real progress. By expanding apprenticeships, we'll contribute to building stronger career pathways, increasing wages across the field, ensuring a robust childcare infrastructure for working parents, and gaining recognition of ECE as an essential industry. And what are the next steps? First, we'll begin by replicating ECE apprenticeships on a broader scale. We're already working with Kentucky, and we're in contact with folks in Illinois, Oregon, Texas, and Wisconsin. Early next year, we'll host Seize the Moment, the first ever national conference on ECE apprenticeships. And we'll publish the ESEPS Manual, a state-of-the-art blueprint for advancing this work. ESEPS has been built upon a foundation of deep expertise and frontline experience. We've established our proof of concept in California, and we're poised to influence the field nationally. Now, we need visionary funding partners who can keep up with us and propel the work forward. We're expanding staff, developing groundbreaking models and materials, and building a national coalition of stakeholders. Now we need your help to fully meet the moment. We'd welcome the opportunity to speak with you.
All right. Thank you all. For the logistics of the sheets, you can just drop them back there on the second reserved chair, or just hand them to Grant, who's back there as well. But again, thank you all so much for coming and spending this time. We appreciate that very, very much. We'll be back here at 2:10 for another one of these on social and emotional development. But have a great day and a great rest of your conference.